speaker there saying that the second article, obstruction of Congress, there were 229 yeas, 198 nays, with one member voting present. As expected, those three Democrats, Representatives Jeff Van Drew, Colin Peterson, and Jared Golden, were those three no votes. Adjourned, we are told, until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Yep. So, Molly, tell us about now. You mentioned impeachment managers, right? Yep. Let's talk a little bit about the specifics here. What are the kind of qualities that, you know, the Democrats are going to want in an impeachment manager as this moves on to the Senate for a trial?
Well, first of all, I just want to point to one thing. If after these big votes, the House, whichever side prevails, tends to cheer and applaud. One thing you've noticed, Nancy Pelosi giving her members that stern look. And you don't want to mess with Nancy Pelosi because this is not a time to be celebrating. This is not a gleeful time. This is somber and solemn. And if you're a member of that caucus and you get that look from Nancy Pelosi, like, zip it.
Right.
They zipped it. So now what happens is the qualities you look for in impeachment managers, former prosecutors, individuals who've shown themselves, who've actually done this before, because the House has impeached a number of judges. One of those individuals, Adam Schiff, who has been an impeachment manager for several judges in the past over in the Senate. His name is obviously in the mix. Nadler's name has been in the mix. But you also look for these young, dynamic members. And Antjuan can maybe speak to that more. But Pramila Jayapal from Washington, who was outspoken. I looked at the Democrats, the first Democrats who spoke in each different allotted time today on the floor. And those individuals, you know, they were up there, possibly Eric Swalwell. Antjuan,
what are your thoughts, Antjuan?
I do believe that Nancy Pelosi knows how to count. And I believe that the impeachment managers will reflect the overall posture and mood of the Democratic Party, so they will be diverse. Look for a number of African-American women like the Val Demings of the world who has experience, law enforcement background.
Incidentally, I think she was one of the only individuals that did receive applause after giving a speech tonight on the floor.
Look for Terry Sewell, who's a hell of a lawyer, who's I thought her stock rose during this time period. Look for some seasoned people like the Adam Schiffs and the Nadlers. Look for voices and faces like that to emerge, but also look for some people advocating for a place to choose their talent. I saw the member from the Virgin Islands, Stacey Plaskett, in a BuzzFeed article today, insisting that she wants to be an impeachment manager. And so you're going to see, really, I think, a mixture of people who want to be in this position, but those who have the skill set and reflect the Democratic Party and what that looks like going forward. Because make no mistake, this is not just about now. This is about the future, too.
Exactly. Perhaps Jamie Raskin, who was up in the Rules Committee. Essentially, he had a very tough task last night, taking the position of arguing for these impeachments these articles of impeachment in front of the Rules Committee, where it's like an appellate court where the members are just kind of cutting you off, asking questions, rapid fire almost. Also, Congresswoman Scanlon, who's the vice chair of the Judiciary Committee, she's just, as she says, I think she says something to the effect of, I was just a soccer mom in Pennsylvania. You know, I'm not one of these individuals who is gunning for the president. And Ted Lieu, you know, he wasn't at the Judiciary Committee markup because he had a stent placed in his heart, but he also has experience with this and has been very outspoken on this issue. All
right, so some names that we'll be watching for. We want to let you know as well that we are waiting for a number of lawmakers to come to the microphones. There is a room where we expect House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, I'm told, shortly, and one would guess the Republicans will be speaking as well. We're told that Adam Schiff will be there as well, but this night continues even as President Trump continues. We should also remind people that rally is still going on in Battle Creek, Michigan. President Trump talking to thousands of his supporters in Battle Creek at the Kellogg Arena there. We are told that he did talk about impeachment. And as I check my email here, I see that the White House has released an official statement on impeachment. And I'm going to pull that up and read from it for you now. This is the official White House statement from the press secretary. Today marks the culmination in the House of one of the most shameful political episodes in the history of our nation. Without receiving a single Republican vote and without providing any proof of wrongdoing, Democrats pushed illegitimate articles of impeachment against the president through the House of Representatives. Democrats have chosen to proceed on this partisan basis in spite of the fact that the president did absolutely nothing wrong. Indeed, weeks of hearings have proved that he did nothing wrong. So that's just part of that letter. I'll go to the end here and read the last graph. The president is confident the Senate will restore regular order, fairness, and due process, all of which were ignored in the House proceedings. He is prepared for the next steps and confident that he will be fully exonerated. President Trump will continue to work tirelessly to address the needs and priorities of the American people, as he has since the day he took office. So, Leslie Sanchez, let me ask you, what do we know about how the president is preparing? We know that prior to this moment, there were folks brought on to the communications side of things, Pam Bondi, Tony Sayegh, to help with the impeachment messaging. But do we have any specifics on what is actually taking place in preparation for the Senate trial?
The biggest conversation they're having is with communicators on the Senate side. What does this process going to look like? The push and pull that's happening with the White House, and trying to find the right balance in that. For a lot of the reasons you talk about, Elaine, this is the president who, is not going to take any accountability or kind of say that he's had any part of that, the process is entirely unfair. And he's managed to get a lot of Republican support behind that. He's raising the money behind that. You can't ever ignore where the dollars are coming from. I say that especially when you're having kind of conversations with conference and a lot of leadership. They're looking, the president's incredibly popular. Economy's going extremely well. And they want to get on to the business of moving to 2020 legislatively and for the campaign. Mm-hmm. So in terms of kind of wrapping this up, I expect it to be accelerated just like it was in the House. Yeah. And that's kind of where we are.